What's going on, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to the Monday Night Live. Put a one in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. Make sure my sound is all good because I had quite the reset from a software update. So, yeah, let me know if I'm too loud. Let me know if I'm not loud enough. So we can get it dialed in. Uh-oh. What happened with my vibe here? Yeah. All right. So one in the chat. We got ones in the chat. I'm in here loud and clear. All right. All right. There we go. I'm also live on TikTok. I was supposed to upload a video and I didn't get time to do that tonight. Or today, I should say. For the TikTok folks. But yeah, so basically, I'll just let the folks funnel in. So I'm going to have more of a conversation tonight about some mindset stuff, right? Talking about self-esteem and what I learned on my journey. The reason why I'm talking about this tonight is because I don't really talk about the mindset stuff very often, which is not great because the mindset stuff is the thing that we often need to focus on the most, and we don't really focus on it, right? We want to know like these tangible steps to do, right? There's the matter of what to do, but then there's also the matter of what to think, right? What to do and what to think, or how to think. So the thoughts that we have at any given time is going to dictate our behavior. Our thoughts can make our journey harder, or it can make it easier, right? By the way, the folks tuning in on TikTok, what's going on? Welcome, good evening. Put a one in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. Let me know if I'm too low or if I'm too loud or what. Let me know. But yeah, put the ones in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. All right, so we got the ones popping up. There we go. So we got to have a conversation about self-esteem. Self-esteem is a thing that I don't really hear people talk a lot about. And what I notice is people will conflate self-esteem and self-confidence. And self-esteem and self-confidence are two very different things. Now, they're intersectional because one can influence the other, but they're not directly correlated. They don't really run parallel to each other. Now, self-esteem is a thing that I've taken a very big interest in throughout my entire healing journey, especially getting into self-development, mindset, and things like that, personal psychology. And really focusing on optimizing my mindset and raising my self-esteem has allowed me to significantly, drastically change my life. Self-esteem, if I had to explain what it is, it's basically your degree or level for gauging your self-worth, right? Gauging self-love, gauging your self-importance, right? The reason why this is important is because if you have a healthy estimation of your self-esteem, your capacity to tolerate abuse or disrespect becomes diminished. If you find yourself tolerating a lot of abuse and disrespect, chances are your self-esteem is relatively low or low enough to really warrant improvement. We live in an abusive environment. So our environment really works against our self-esteem in ways that we don't even really realize. We don't really have a healthy appreciation for how insidious our environment can be at times, because we're just in it all the time. It's kind of like you've been in it for so long, you don't know what it feels like to be outside of it, right? That's a very big thing that a lot of us face. Things that we shouldn't tolerate, we end up tolerating. We don't even realize how much of it we even tolerate. And it's like this pool that we get chucked into at a very young age. to the point where if we are dealing with low self-esteem, a lot of the substrate for that development of low self-esteem started in our childhood with events that happened in our childhood that we didn't quite realize. And your self-esteem can affect how you pursue your goals, the rigor that you pursue your goals. It affects whether you believe you can achieve your goals or not, whether you're worthy of your goals, right? There's things like imposter syndrome and whatnot, where you feel like you're in the room but you don't belong there, or like you don't this you're not cut out for the job quite, even though on paper you are, but you just feel like you're not. You feel like you don't belong there. You feel like you don't deserve it to some degree or another. A lot of this is a self-esteem issue where we can really underestimate ourselves and our own worthiness, right, to a pathological degree. And it can lead us to self-sabotage. It often leads us to self-sabotage because it's this lingering feeling that we don't deserve something, right? So one of the reasons why it's so difficult to maintain, like, let's say, a healthy diet and lifestyle is because a healthy diet and lifestyle requires you to firmly stand against abuse and disrespect. It requires you to tell yourself yes and to tell outsiders no, right? One thing is good to ask yourself is, how often do you tell people no, and how often do you tell yourself yes? You may have low self-esteem if you often tell yourself no, but you hardly tell others no. You're telling everybody else yes while you're telling yourself no. You be careful about that. And it's hard to recognize or admit when we have low self-esteem. It's a hard thing to recognize. It's a hard thing to admit because we don't want to, like, identify as a person who lacks self-esteem. It's not a great feeling. But you got to learn to deal with that feeling, be honest about it, and then address it, right? And this is something that I had to learn really early in my life. Today's been such a busy day. I done messed my food schedule up. So I'm eating all late. Huh? So my issues with low self-esteem actually started pretty young in my life. Started pretty early on. Um, I was made fun of a lot as a kid. Um, and I went through a lot of experiences with my peers and other kids around me who were oftentimes disrespectful, abusive, or just made me feel like I couldn't be myself or like I didn't belong, right? In fact, there are several feelings that I remember from my childhood. It was the sense of feeling invisible. That was one big one. Feeling invisible, feeling small, right? Feeling like I couldn't be my authentic self because it was odd or inappropriate or corny, that kind of thing. I remember being made to feel that way as a child. And that lasted through a pretty long period of my life, even up until my teenage years. And throughout my childhood and teenage years, I kind of lost my authenticity in some ways because I would alter myself in order to fit in with a given friend group, right? I would kind of take on a little bit of the speaking patterns and mannerisms of the most popular person in the group. I would take on little attributes of the most popular person in the group. But it would be in a very subtle way where they didn't really catch on that I was doing it. but I would just do it just enough to kind of fit into the group. You know, I would learn the inside jokes and deploy the inside jokes to create some familiarity among the group. Little things like this. So it was like this kind of chameleon behavior, right? To blend in. But the more I did this, the more uncomfortable I felt with doing it. I didn't really like it. I didn't like living outside of my authentic self, right? And it made having a social life a burden to me. It became uncomfortable. And eventually what I did was I self-isolated. I started self-isolating. I started just outright even rejecting socializing with other people, right? I became a recluse a little bit. Or a lot, actually. As time went on and I got older, I used to say yes to going out to the parties, yes to go hanging out with friends. I would say yes all the time. In fact, my mother, when I was a child, she would tell me, you need to learn how to tell people no. She would tell me that a lot when I was a kid. I didn't know what she meant. I didn't really appreciate what she meant when she said it. But as I got older, I started telling people no more frequently. I started really putting my foot down. After high school and in my 20s, I started becoming more of my authentic self. I started being more unapologetic about who I was. Now, what I did was, and it's, what I did was kind of odd because I started with public speaking and stand-up comedy at like 18 years old. And this was like me practicing public speaking. And you know, comedy is like this thing where you can't really effectively do comedy if you're not being authentic. You have to be your authentic self if you're going to do comedy. It's very hard to not to be funny and relatable if you're not your authentic self, or at least that was my experience, right? So I would go up on stage, I would do jokes off the cuff. I didn't really write down jokes. I didn't even know that was the thing you were supposed to do. And it was like this observational comedy thing. And a lot of my comedy was rooted in pointing out weird social behaviors and pointing out the things that we tolerate, that we normalize, that we probably shouldn't. And that's what a lot of my observational comedy was. I didn't necessarily want to be like a professional comedian or anything like that. This was more so just like a training mechanism for me. It's a way to practice. I always appreciated challenging myself. I always saw the value in that. I would challenge myself, whether it be academically, I would challenge myself physically in the gym. I would challenge myself with public speaking, things like that. And it wasn't like every show was phenomenal. A lot of times it wasn't. Like I did bringer shows, and a lot of the times I couldn't really get people to come out to shows. Right? Sometimes people's schedules wouldn't line up, or they would say they would show up and they wouldn't, whatever the case is. So it was a bit of a grind, but it was a very valuable experience for me. So, you know, I did it for a few years. I would do this called bringer shows, where basically I would have to, the more people I brought to the show, the more minutes I got on stage. So, you know, I would like stand outside and give in areas, hand out tickets to the show that I was going to perform at. And so I would learn doing that. You know, if you're going to be handing out tickets and getting people to come to the show, you'd have to approach people and strike up conversation and kind of talk them into taking the ticket and coming to the show. And as I did that, I got better at doing that and approaching people on the street. And I learned a lot about people at that point. And I made some friends doing that as well, right? And that was a big change. That was a big moment of change in my life. But in particular, that built up more self-confidence than self-esteem. The self-esteem thing came a little bit later. I didn't view it as a self-esteem thing. I kind of viewed it as like a self-confidence thing, and they're two different things. But in any case, I don't really do the stand-up comedy thing necessarily anymore, but the public speaking thing, like kind of what I'm doing now, right? Um, and this is digital public speaking, not really like, you know, on stage public speaking, but good enough. Now, me spending more time with myself, it was uncomfortable, but also freeing. There's a lot of freedom in being by myself, spending a lot of time by myself in a very deliberate fashion. And I got to be more introspective and talk to myself out loud. And I would figure out all these different ways to talk to myself out loud. I would go for long walks and I would put like an earpiece in my ears so it would seem like I'm talking on the phone when I'm talking out loud so I don't get looked at or judged as being a weirdo who's like walking through the streets talking to himself. Right. And in doing that, I learned the value in, you know, self-talk and internal dialogue. It's very important to listen to yourself when you talk to yourself. It's important, number one, to have an internal dialogue and then to understand what that internal dialogue is. Right? If there's a voice in your head talking to you, you should at least be aware of it. Right? Like very aware of it, because the things that you say to yourself says a lot about your self-esteem. And your self-esteem will mess your health up. That's why I'm talking about. That's a big part of why I'm talking about this. Your self-esteem will cause you to do things like binge eating. Your self-esteem will cause you to be hanging out with people you shouldn't be hanging out with. Your low self-esteem will cause you to repeatedly say yes to people that you should be saying no to. Your low self-esteem will cause you to take things knowing that you deserve more. Right? Low self-esteem makes it harder for you to walk away from the things that you should be walking away from. And I know that, and a lot of that in my life, I personally experienced. So I learned a lot about that and my self-esteem issues through the self-dialogue and the self-talk. So like, it would be a good idea to ask yourself, what do you feel you deserve and why? Right? Or do the people around you respect you in the way that you feel you should be respected, or do they not? Like for real, like answer the question honestly. Does your family show you respect on a consistent basis? How often do they disrespect you? And how often do you confront them about it when they do it? Right? How much disrespect are you tolerating? Are you being ignored or neglected? And what are you doing about it? And if you're not doing anything about it, why are you not doing anything about it? When people come to you and ask you for things, or even demand things of you, are they giving you anything in return? Are they offering you anything in return when they ask you for something? And if they're not, what are you demanding in exchange? Have you drafted an internal or informal terms of agreement with the people who come to you with their hand out? Right? We may know like that one or two people, or hell, maybe even three or four people in your lives where they're always coming to you, hey, I need help with this. I need you to do this. I need you to come here. I need you to do, I need you. I need. Right? How often do you tell them no? How much of yourself are you sacrificing in order to give them what they want? And what are they doing for you in return? Do these people really love you for you, who you are? Are you your genuine, authentic self in public? Are you your genuine, authentic self around these people? And how accepting and respectful are they of you and your authentic, genuine self? These are some good questions to answer. And it may take a while. You know, you may answer the question and then tomorrow you may change the answer or whatever. You may go back and forth with yourself about the answer, right? Because these are questions that you really perhaps never even considered. Right? Life will often give you what you want if you insist enough. Matter of fact, I would argue life gives you what you want most of the time, depending on how committed you are to it. Whenever I personally have really committed to something in my life that I wanted and I really pursued it, I usually get it, right? You may not get it in the way that you thought you would, but you do get it to one degree or another. It may take a while, it may take years, but you get it if you persist. If you insist and persist, you'll get what you want, right? But like, how likely are you to make demands? How likely are you to insist? How likely are you to raise your own internal standards, not just of yourself, but others? Right? These are the questions that I had to ask myself and ask every day and go on my walks and have whole conversations and talk about individual people in my life, who I liked, who I didn't like, why, how much do you like yourself, right? And so basically what I realized is, well, you can't like yourself if you don't really know who you are. And you never really get a chance to live and be who you really are, because you're always kind of altering and tailoring yourself to the people around you so you can fit in, right? Till this day, I've never really fit in with a group. I never have. I don't have an interest in fitting in though at this point. I've kind of abandoned that because some of us, we're not really meant to fit in. A lot of us, we're not really meant to fit in. We don't have to, right? And knowing that was very freeing to me. Like, I don't have to fit in with a group. It's like, oh, I could just be my own kind of person, my own network. That's awesome, right? I can lead, right? And when I don't fit in, it's probably because there is something in me or something that I want to share that it's very unfamiliar to a lot of people or most people. And if it's so unfamiliar and new and fresh, it could be potentially very valuable. And if you want to see how valuable it is, cultivate it, work on it, refine it, and then share it with others. See what happens. And that's amazing, because when you do that, when you work on yourself, your authenticity, when you work on your own thing, it's the thing, you're passionate about it, it's yours, you own it, you work on it, you refine it, and you have pride in it, and then you share it, and people look at that and they're like, oh wow, that's dope, what is that? Now you don't have to fit in, people are just coming to you, they want to fit in, they just want to be around it, they're curious, they're interested in it, right? They want to walk with you on the journey, right? And like attracts like. Your people will come to you, right? It's a very interesting thing. But you have to free yourself from like social norms. Like for me, I don't really particularly have like social norms, right? So you know, a social norm would be like you always shake with your right hand, you don't shake with your left hand for whatever reason. I don't care what hand you shake with, right? Or people like me where I'll eat on stream, or I'll bring like like a couple pounds of bananas to, like, if you invite me to a restaurant, I'll bring my own food if they don't have anything there that I eat, and I'll pack and bring a bunch of fruit to a steakhouse. Hey, it's my birthday. I would really appreciate it if you came with me. Either chances are I'm like, I'm not coming to a steakhouse. You should know better than to invite me to that. Or I could be like, okay, you want to invite me to a steakhouse? I'm gonna sit up there with a bunch of fruit, and you're gonna have to risk me getting kicked out because I'm not eating anything on the menu. And if I get kicked out, it's on you because you invited me to a place that I don't belong in the first place. So, and that's happened to me before, and I packed my own food. They didn't kick me out though. They were like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's interesting. And then the whole conversation became largely about my eating habits and how I'm so disciplined. And then people are like, oh, that looks good. Yeah, I need to eat more of that. Yeah, I'm trying to get more healthy. Yeah, I need to eat this. Yeah, I need to eat that. Right. And then people start gravitating to what I'm doing because it's so far from the norm of that environment. I wasn't trying to fit in, didn't have an interest in doing so. And it sparked a whole brand new interesting conversation. And people respect you for doing that. Right. So, like, I barely eat out. I don't know what mock meats and vegan this and that are out. I don't know. I eat pretty bare bones. So, you know, people ask me, hey, like, what's a really good meal that I could have during the day? 2 pounds of bananas. It's just bananas. Hmm. Yeah. Well, bananas ain't good enough for you? You're so special, you can't just, well, bananas ain't good enough? It's got to be packaged with fancy colors and writing. It's got to be hyper palatable and processed. You know, the earth doesn't provide sustenance for you. You got to do all type of stuff for it for it to be value of your palate. Right? No, fair point. Right? That is an authentic, genuine response for me. That's how I think. I'm not really worried about avoiding being offensive. I'm not really avoiding, like, oh, I'm trying to relate to people. It's not really what I'm doing, right? I don't have an interest in doing that. Do I eat mainly according to the seasons? Yeah, I try to for the most part. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to give up any more fruit than I have to, but yeah, genuinely, yeah. Good question though. I know I'm not meant to. See, this is what we say here. I know I'm not meant to fit in. It does get a little lonely sometimes, though. That said, I keep myself very busy, but I don't get to share ideas with like-minded people often. Yeah, it could be kind of lonely, right? You know, the world that we live in, the society that we live in, it can be kind of alienating now. So, for example, most people around our age range, like mid 20s to like 45 or even 50, they go out to eat with friends, they drink alcohol, you know, things like that. And if you don't drink and you don't really eat out, yeah, that's alienating. All right. So it'd be a good idea to clearly define your interests and then look for an environment with those interests. And if you can't find one, build one. All right. You've got to put the effort, make the time and put the effort. Build it and they will come if it doesn't already exist. So then there is the matter of pursuing a fulfilling life, something that you can be proud of. Like, what are you doing that you can take pride in or that you are prideful of? What are you doing? What have you done? What are you building? What have you learned? What services are you providing to the people around you that make you valuable to your community? It's good to take inventory of these things. So, like, for example, a big part of self-love, right, to raise self-esteem is cultivating self-love. And the question is, if you love yourself, what is it that you love about yourself? Who are you? What have you done? What are you doing? What is it about you that warrants this love? It's important to answer that. Some people may disagree with me and they may say, well, I deserve love because I exist. Okay, if that's a good enough answer for you. Like, don't say that, but you don't really mean it. Like, that's fine. That's a good answer if you really mean it. If that's a persuasive answer for you, that's fine. But don't lie and say that, because then it's not going to change your life. It's not true. Because when we truly love something, we can give you a very detailed answer as to why. Right? Because there's context to everything in existence. You don't just love a thing simply because it exists. It has attributes. Right? If you say, I love nature, why? Well, I love nature because of the vibrant colors, the life, the feeling of peace it gives me. It feeds me, it shelters me, it teaches me, it gives me life, it grounds me. It's healing when I'm in the environment, when I'm in that natural environment. There's attributes to it, there's things to it that add to its value. Right? So when I say, like, what is it about you that you love? What are you doing? What have you done? What is it about you that warrants love and all that type of stuff? Work on developing a really concrete answer to that question. Right? Like, really take your time with it too. Write about yourself. Talk about yourself. How often do you really big yourself up? Like, yo, I'm dope. Look what I've done. Look what I do for people. Look what I teach people. Look at the lives I've saved. Look at the lives I've changed. Right? Look at me, I'm beautiful. Right? I give the best hugs. I make the best food. I'm an amazing listener. People confide in me. They trust me. I bring value to the people in my lives. I'm a pillar of the community. Anything, right? What is it? I mean, you decide. What are the things you like about yourself? There's plenty of things that you can like about yourself. Anybody who I know or have met, I can tell them very specifically what I like about them. And I can go on and on and on. I'm not even them, and I can tell them. And anybody in the chat right now who knows me, ask me. I'll give you an answer. I'll give you an answer right on the spot. I'll go on and on. I'll big you up. I'll big you up. Right? When I meet people and they share with me themselves, I grow to like them. Like, most people I meet, I grow to like them. There's many people who I've met that, like, I don't like. Some, not many. And even the people who I've met and I didn't like them, I forget who they are, right? Because I'm more focused on the people I like. I'm not really that focused on the people I don't like. Generally. Like, if I don't like you, I'm probably not going to remember much about you. And I'm not really interested in having much exposure to people I don't like, right? I have crafted my life to a degree where I don't really have to engage much with people I don't like. I don't have to. I don't want to. I don't have to. Do too much, and what I give and my work that I do is way too valuable for me to be spending my time with people I don't like. because all the energy that I give to people I don't like is energy that is being subtracted from the people I do like. It's zero sum. I have a finite amount of energy to give, and I have to be responsible with who I give it to. Because there's people who I like a lot who deserve that energy. Right? Like I have a beautiful community of tribe members. And I like talking to everybody in the tribe. Great people, phenomenal people. And people I admire. It's the people with like the biggest health struggles, the people with the biggest struggles in their life in general, and they're really working towards resolving their issues. If you really pay attention to these people, these are some of the most valuable people that you will ever meet. These are people who will really teach you what it's like to really say yes to yourself. Right? The more in shape you are, the easier it is to get in shape. The more out of shape you are, the harder it is to get in shape. So when people are extremely out of shape and they're trying to get in shape, you better give them their props because they're doing something that's real hard right out the gate. Right? The people that are working from the biggest disadvantage are the people who deserve the most respect because they're the ones that's working the hardest. And we got to cheerlead for those people. They're outworking us. Right? You're an athlete, you're in good shape, you're working, you're running 10 miles a day. All right. But the person who has all the joint pain and they're really overweight and they're very out of shape, for them to run 1 mile takes them way more effort than it takes you to run 10 miles. They're outworking you. They may be running less miles than you, but they're outworking you. That perspective is real. The person running the 10 miles, yeah, I mean, it's impressive to run 10 miles, but the person who struggles to run that 1 mile and it takes every bit of them to complete that 1 mile, that right there is amazing. Right? So Carlos, where you said how? Effort. I'm talking about raw effort. If you're used to running 10 miles, then it doesn't take you that much effort. Right? So I'm talking about effort. I'm not talking about like the overall amount of miles. I'm talking about the effort. And I value effort even more than outcomes. Because the outcomes don't mean anything without the effort. Right? It's like childbirth. It's crazy. I mean, women risk their lives to give birth to a child. You can die giving birth to a child. You go get pregnant and go through a 9-month pregnancy and do it anyway. That's crazy. That's wild. I mean, you're a woman and you do that. You nurture, a pregnancy. You take it all the way to term, and you push for dear life to deliver your child. That's some wild stuff. Like you are like the portal to the world for other people. It's crazy. Right? I'm using these things as examples to really kind of stimulate the mind to think a bit deeper about things, because you have certain things we underestimate how impactful things actually are. Right? Even like, for example, little kids, if you develop like low self-esteem or something like that, or you're dealing with low self-esteem, chances are it was a lot of stuff that was done to you as a child. And the people who contributed to your low self-esteem as a child, they probably didn't even realize they were doing it. They had no idea. You could have a parent who's just completely uninterested in the things that you're interested in. So you go to your parent and you're all excited. Look what I did. And they're like, yeah, all right. All right, all right, all right. They're not that interested. It eats into your self-esteem. Right? If your parent keeps picking you up late from school, or they even forget to pick you up from school, you're like, damn, I'm like an afterthought. They forgot I even exist. Then they just left me here. Damn. I must not be that valuable then. People be out here wrecking kids. They don't even realize. They're like, oh man, I made a mistake. That mistake is it would cost big time. So I know in my journey to really work on self-esteem, I had to kind of get indignant. I had to really speak life into myself and love on myself. And I kind of had to like refather myself, so to speak. A lot of my father's rhetoric and tough love actually repeats in my head till this day, and it's valuable. Um, but I use other things as a counterbalance. So it can't just be like the tough love of my dad. Like for example, with my dad, I can get a 98 on a test and be like, "Yo, Dad, I got a 98." And he'd be like, "Where are the other 2 points? You're supposed to get 100." Like, damn, all right. Yeah, get them other 2 points. My mom would be like, "Proud of you." My dad would be like, "Where are the other 2 points?" If I get 100, I show it to my dad. "Hey, Dad, I got 100." He'd be like, "Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. I don't expect anything less." All right. Okay. My mom's like, "Look at you, you're so smart." So proud of you. Right. Going back to the comedy thing is really interesting to me is because like comics are like very like good comedians are great, like real truth telling, really honest, right? Comedy comes from like a real, raw, authentic place. Sometimes I will make jokes, and a lot of my jokes came from like I even though like I had so there's this thing called roasting, and basically it would be us kids in the neighborhood or whatever, and we'd crack jokes on each other, and everybody got the jokes, right? If you were dark skinned, you got joked on for being dark skinned. If you were light skinned, you got joked on for being light skinned. If you were fat, you got joked on for being fat. If you were skinny, you got joked on for being skinny. If you had a small head, you got joked on for having a small head. If you had a big head, you were getting joked on for having a big head. It didn't matter what, right? Any attribute, nobody was safe. If you had little feet, you got made fun of for having little feet. You had big feet, you got made fun of for having big feet. Didn't matter, right? High voice, low voice, whatever, didn't matter. So that helps to like build up your confidence and toughen your skin. And this is one of those things that shows you that you can develop a high level of self-confidence and still have low self-esteem. So like when I was a kid, I got made fun of for being skinny a lot, right? He's a he looks like a starving immigrant child. Uh he looked like he was born prematurely. You look like you got terminal cancer. You look hungry. Your ribs are showing in your back, right? How all your ribs showing and you got six pack abs. right? All the skinny jokes. You look like you're starving, your parents don't feed you, blah, 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 right? And all of these jokes would, like, if you heard these jokes, you'd be like, damn, how skinny? I was a regular kid. But all the skinny jokes would make me feel like, like something wrong with me. I wouldn't let that show. I'd keep my cool. Because the thing is, if you get emotional, it gets worse. Like if you get emotional, you get real mad, they turn up the intensity on the jokes and you start getting dogpiled. It's brutal, right? So you can't crack. You got to keep it together and you got to roast back, right? You can't swing on nobody. You can't get mad, curse nobody out. You can't cry. You can't do any of that. Either you crack the jokes or you take the jokes, right? Either you crack back, you roast back, or you just sit there and you just eat it, right? So basically you can develop a tough skin that shows externally, and it's like a self-confidence thing. But that can hurt your self-esteem though. It could. It may not, but it could. Right? And hearing all of them jokes about me being small, one of my big goals was about gaining muscle mass and getting big and strong so that I would no longer be small. Right? Because I was like, when I was a kid, I was like one of the smallest kids in my class. Right? I was short, skinny, a high voice, looked younger than all my peers. Right? So like even the girls my age looked at me like a cute little brother. No respect. And I ended up getting into a lot of fights because, the other boys thought I was soft and I'd be easy. I was an easy target. So I had to deal with a lot of that as a kid. And it affected me. So basically, I went from being like a skinny, small kid to, as an adult, gaining a lot of weight. I went from like 130 pounds to like 190 something pounds, right? I put on a lot of weight. And I went from being known as like the small, skinny kid to like a dude who's just big. Or like strong, right? Of course, I gained a lot of body fat and joint pain, etc. But I gained the weight. I was big. But with all the internal work and things that I did on myself, I no longer have that complex about being small. So I don't desire to be big. So like whatever size I am is fine as long as it's a healthy size. So I don't have those hangups anymore. Because there's a lot of healing that was done where I don't really have a complex about like it doesn't really occur to me like, oh, I'm too skinny or too large or whatever the case is. Oh, I'm generally fine in my own skin. Right? Now, if I do lose too much weight, I'm like, I'm kind of losing too much weight, right? And then I'll increase a little bit more food, whatever the case is. But generally speaking, I don't really have that level of body dysmorphia like that. And body dysmorphia was a thing that I dealt with too for probably like a majority of my life. Even when I like gained all kind of muscle and all of this type of stuff, I still felt small. That's why I kept gaining weight. And even when I gained enough weight and I got big and all that type of stuff and I looked fine, it was no longer this thing of like, oh, women viewed me as like, oh, he's a small kind of like little brother. I was no longer viewed that way. Women would call me big all the time, but I still felt small. Now it was just a thing in my head. People weren't calling me that or talking about me like that. Now it was just a thing in my head. That's what happened, right? So that was the thing that I had to resolve. Now, the thing is that when me and other kids were gathered around cracking on each other, they weren't trying to lower my self-esteem. It was just the thing we did. We were joking on each other. We don't know what the outcomes of all of that's going to be. Right? And them jokes are problematic as hell, the way we used to go in on each other. I wouldn't make those jokes on people who I call friends. I wouldn't roast my friends like that. Today, I wouldn't do that. It's disrespectful. I wouldn't do it. Right? And when you start joking about somebody, when somebody talk about they look like they got terminal cancer and be laughing at somebody because they're skinny and they look like they're starving. kids are mean, man. Like, damn, kids are mean. They be messing each other up. Kids are brutal to each other. But like, as kids, you get that from home, you get it from television and all of that type of stuff. You just get it from your environment. You don't realize you're kids. You don't realize you're doing it. And like, I'll have people and I kind of, sometimes people put themselves in a position for me to crack on them and I don't do it. So like, for example, I'll have people jump into my comments who will like talk about like, oh, you starving vegans or whatever, or say something along the lines of like, oh, you raw vegans are weak and starving. You can't build muscle, this and that. And the people who jump in my comments and say stuff like that, they look like they battling some real health struggles, right? We're talking about like obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney disease, all of that, right? And they're trying to like crack on me and say all type of stuff about me. And I'm looking at them and I'm kind of like, look, man, you look like instead of being combative with me, you need help. You need to be asking me for help, not trying to argue back and forth with me. You need my help. Now, if we was like 13, 14 years old, you'd be getting roasted right now, right? But me as an adult, I'm like, nah, that don't sit right on my spirit to be cracking on people like that, right? Because it's serious. Like, when you were a kid, you would make fun of people for being fat, right? Because kids are mean like that to each other. And so like, I would be the skinny kid with the fat friends, and I got cracked on for being skinny and they got cracked on for being fat, but we would like respect and love each other and speak life into each other. That was the thing that I would do as a kid, and I didn't realize I was doing it as a kid. Even when I was a kid, I was friends with somebody who was a little, what's the word for it? Not the R word. I don't want to use the R word, right? Because that's not a thing. But what's it called? It's developmentally, what is it? Developmentally disabled or something like that. I don't forget what the term is. But they were a little delayed, right? But like, we were good friends. We would play with Legos together and all of that type of stuff. But I was the only kid who would play with him. And I recognized that. So I was like, made sure to be like kind, And what I realized was when I got older, it's funny that like now me and being like a raw vegan and all of this type of stuff and helping people on a healing journey. Because when I was a kid, there was always this streak of kindness. I remember when it was like boys out in the neighborhood and they were like pulling the wings off of like a fly or something like that, whatever, right? And they were like burning it in the sun with a mag. They were doing wild stuff to this insect, and it upset me very deeply. And like I started crying, but I didn't want to cry in front of them because they'd make fun of you for crying. And it hurt my heart. Seeing what they were doing to this bug, to this insect. It was just an insect, but the cruelty they were going in on this insect, and that was one of the moments in my life. It was devastating to me. And I look back at that now and I'm like, that was my genuine self as a child. And I couldn't show that genuine kindness as a kid because I'm surrounded by kids who are just mean and just, they'll mock you for it, right? Developmentally challenged. There we go. Okay. Like even, we would throw around derogatory terms as kids, like we would call each other certain names that I'm not going to say on stream, but they would be like slurs now. But when we'd say them as kids, we never really internalized them as slurs. And then you get older and you realize what it actually means. And you're like, oh, I don't know, that's problematic. I'm not going to say that anymore. Yeah. And I realized for me, when I was younger, like kids were generally, at least in my environment, were like mean. Had a bit of a mean streak. And you had to be tough. And the thing is that like, when kids are being mean and then everybody else is laughing and kind of rewarding the meanness with laughter, they encourage the meanness. And then next thing you know, that's just egging everybody on to be mean. So you just have a circle of mean kids. That's how that happens, right? And if you extrapolate outwards, you realize our society is kind of like that. Like we perpetuate like meanness, right? And so we end up having this diet that's like vicious, right? Where it's like every meal that you eat has to have like a corpse of some sort on the plate. It's got to be a dead chicken. It's got to be meat from a dead cow or a dead pig or some type of dead animal. There was an animal that had to be put through a meat grinder and tortured and murdered and all of this for people to just go out and have fun and eat at a restaurant. And so you just had people laughing and giggling and having a good time with corpses all over the table. It's horrific. We don't realize how bad that is, right? You know, even like our country. You look at the foreign policy of our country, like our country got to #1 economically in the world by basically just going around the world destroying other people's countries, doing horrible stuff. Like our government just did horrible stuff all over the world to other countries. Just this exploitative, cruel foreign policy. And we can just not talk about it, not think about it, not even know about it. Just going about our day having no idea what our government is doing overseas. The horrificness. And you're in it and you don't realize it. This is what I mean. And that energy, it seeps into everything, even the kids. And then kids are torturing an insect. So that wickedness and that it starts from the outside and it comes inward and it affects everybody in this deep rooted level. And so then it's like, oh, why are people like unaliving themselves at such a high rate? Why is this skyrocketing depression? What's with all the violence and the violent crime and the school shootings and all this stuff? What's going on? Why is that? What is that? It's, you have to address that environment that encroaches on your self-esteem. There's got to be more love and more truth to power that has to be put out to counterbalance that. That has to be resisted. Right? Oh, let me get up here in the let me get up here in the Discord. Miss Vane, thank you for the heart me. Buford, what's going on? My man Buford, good to see you. Thank you for the heart me. Appreciate you. I think you're still in the Discord too. Touch base with me. Let me know how you're doing. What is that? Sheree Armstead? Cherie Armstead, thank you for the rose. Appreciate you. I hope I said that right. So all of this ties into that self-esteem thing. Even the food we eat, because we abuse ourselves through our food, a lot of us, and that impedes on our self-love. Because it's hard to really truly engage in self-love if you're eating a diet that's killing you. Right? You know, you go out, even, you know, go out and drink. Alcohol literally deprives your vital organs of oxygen. It reduces your oxygenation in your blood. It's poison. And people will willingly go out and spend their hard-earned money to drink alcohol and poison themselves in order to reduce the flow of oxygen to their brain so that it reduces their inhibitions. And then the nastiness and the weirdness comes out. It's a wild thing to see. Luckily, when I came of drinking age, I would drink, but I did this thing. I would practice saying no. I would practice being obstinate, being disagreeable to a degree. And I learned when to leave, right? So you would never catch me out in public being drunk and vomiting and carrying on, being sloppy. You would never see that from me. I would be there having a good time with everybody, keeping it together. And then next thing you know, I was gone. People are like, where Rem went? He left? Right? Yeah. Because I would count how many drinks I'm going to have. And once I'm done and I'm leaving. So I knock back that last drink and be out the door waving like this here. I'm out. They ain't catching me like that. Now it's like I haven't drank in years. I have no interest in it whatsoever. I have too much respect for what I've built and the level of health that I've generated. I'm not gonna violate that by drinking no alcohol. I'm not doing it. So with the self-esteem, the way that I engage, and even the self-esteem, it's not like, oh, I raised my self-esteem to like the highest level and now I don't have to work on it anymore. That's not true. I still work on it till this day. Because it's a thing, even when you develop and you increase your self-esteem, you still have to maintain it, and that's a work in progress. It's not a thing you just develop high self-esteem and then it's just like that. You don't have to work on it no more. No, no, no. It's a thing all the time. And you have to check in on yourself. Speak life into yourself. Do you like yourself? Do you like yourself? What do you like about yourself? Why should other people want to spend any time around you? Why should other people have you around and in their life? What type of influence do you have on other people? And should they have you in their lives influencing them? Right? These are good questions to answer. And you got to be real honest with the answer. Right? You got to fight for yourself every day. You got to fight for yourself. You got to fight to keep what you have, and you got to fight and work on and building on what you have. You got to build on it. This perpetual self-improvement project that we engage in, right? And it's out of that self-love and that self-respect that out of all the other people, we were born, we got the opportunity to live, and we have the opportunity to really work on and build this life that we have. Whatever resources we have access to, we get this shot to have this experience, right? It's just an opportunity. Life is just an opportunity, and we can run it, and you should, because you ain't got nothing else to do. Right? Work on yourself. You ain't got nothing else to do. Build something that you take pride in. You don't have nothing else to do. There's nothing else worth doing. Right? Make something that reflects who you are. And take pride in it and share it with others. Right? I built Tribe by Noir. I help people get off their medications and reverse their illnesses. I help people heal themselves. And I'm thoroughly committed to doing that. I'm not doing anything else. If I learn something and I figure something out and it's going to be of value to you, I'm going to share it with you. When y'all ask me questions, I answer as much as I can. I see y'all questions. I make videos about them. I do live streams about them. I want to help. Right? And I enjoy doing that. And I do that, out of love for everybody else, my fellow man, and love for myself. I have a deep love for the opportunity to help. I get to do this work. It's one of the things that is one of the things that I love about myself. I have the capacity to serve. And there's people every day all around the world who are grateful for it. And I want to build on that. Right? I get to come on here and say the things that a lot of people haven't heard before. There's things too, and I don't talk about dating a whole lot, but dating is very important too. Like dating and relationships and marriage and all that type of stuff is really important too. And like I hear dating coaches and say things and all of this, and I'm like, the conversation is like kind of ridiculous, a lot of it that I hear, right? you know, where people are like, oh, I don't date unless they have this and that, and they make a certain amount of money. But I'm like, you're missing the point entirely. This conversation is not helpful to most people. You know how you develop healthier relationships? You reduce your capacity for disrespect and abuse. And you cultivate love and you build a thing that you're proud of. And you live in your most authentic self. In order to improve the quality of your relationships in your life, you do that and you will filter out the relationships you ain't got no business being in. And that makes room for other relationships with other people that you should be in. All right? Any woman should be able to find a man who respects her, who values and works for her safety, right? He loves his mom. He loves women in general. He's a loving person. And he believes in service and well-being, right? Same thing is true in the opposite direction. There's not a whole lot of advice that you can give to a man that you couldn't also give to a woman. Right? It's not like it's a completely separate rule book, like men got to do this and the women got. It's not really true. You know, like I hear this conversation about like, oh, you know, I don't believe in 50-50, where a man wants to put in 50% and the other woman and the woman puts in 50% and it's a 50-50%. It's not 50-50, it's 100-100. Which means both people come together and they put 100% of both and you get 200%. Because you can do 100%, you can give 100% by yourself. The big part of being in a relationship is that you can literally double the 100% into 200%. Why would two people come together and still have 100%? That makes sense. You can have 100% when you're single and then get together in a relationship and it's still 100%. That don't make sense. It's not how the math works. Relationships are meant to amplify. And so when a person who has great love for themselves and they cultivate so much love for themselves, it spreads out onto other people. And you have another person who's the same exact way. When those two people come together, it amplifies that spillover of love and it changes the atmosphere. It touches everybody in the network. Right? I don't have a whole lot of an ego. That's one thing too. It's like, I realize that it's very important to put a check on your ego because you have self-esteem and self-confidence and they can be like diverging. So for example, your self-esteem is like how you perceive yourself and you know, your worth and your value and how much you love yourself. And the more love you have for yourself, the less disrespect and abuse you can tolerate. And you'll walk away. Right? Nobody's going to keep you in abuse and all this type of stuff because you don't have no tolerance for that. And then you have self-confidence. Confidence is a different thing. Confidence, you can have a person with high confidence, high self-confidence, and low self-esteem. They can be both simultaneously. Your confidence comes from a repetition of competence. Right? So like confidence is like evidence-based, or at least it should be. So the more competence you demonstrate, the more confident you become. So like, let's say for example, you can have a woman who she's very confident. She makes good money. She's successful in her career. She's very attractive. Men are falling all over themselves, right? To get in her good graces, right? But if her self-esteem is low, she's very vulnerable to picking the wrong man and being manipulated by some narcissist and kept in an abusive relationship. Right? Because she doesn't like or respect herself. Right? Same can be the case for a man. Uh-oh. What's that? Okay. So one thing that really helps to protect yourself is be aware of what you got. It's a lot easier for somebody to come and scam you out of money you didn't realize you had. But if you know you have it, you're gonna be less likely to give it up. Right? So that's why it's important. So I have a video series up for tribe members. It's called Discover, Assess, Actualize. Discovery is basically coming to like learn about yourself, discover who you are, your identity versus your experiences, your values and beliefs, etc. And then there's assessment. It's like a box, and you open up the box and you dig through all the things in the box, right? And you take all the stuff out the box and you assess what you have. What are your skills? What are your biases? What are the personality traits that you have that are very good to deploy for specific things? What do you have? Take account, take inventory. That's what assessment is. You're taking inventory of what you have. Get to know what's in your box, right? Skills, attributes, traits, all of that. Get to know yourself well. Ask yourself the questions. Have that internal dialogue. Manipulative people, they tend to see things in you and they will assess the things you have. And they might assess the things you have better than you. They may see that you have certain things that you ain't even know you have. And you know what? If given the opportunity, they try to exploit that. That's why it's important to take inventory so you can know what people are after. People snoop around, be nosy. They want to know what you got. You're going to dig in your proverbial pockets, right? So this is a lot of the things that and for me, I go for a walk every day, a couple hours or so. And a lot of it is like internal dialogue. I have like full-blown conversations with myself, out loud, I verbally, out loud, in my head, all type of stuff, right? That dialogue is there. Like before I got on this stream tonight to talk about stuff, I went for a walk and talked about it first. Right? The cool thing about self-esteem is not just like a thing you have, but it when you raise your self-esteem to a certain point, it allows you to create terms and conditions. You know, like when you sign up for like a service online or something like that, or you go to a website, there's a terms and conditions in the footer, right? So in order to use the thing, there's like a terms of service that come along with that. You have to agree to the terms of service. It is very valuable as a person to have a terms of service, right? If people want to be in your network, if people want to ask you for things, if people want to be in your environment and they want to lean on you for things, there's a terms and conditions, there's a terms of service that you need to agree to, right? You get to come to me and ask me for things, but don't come to me empty-handed, right? Don't do that. So, for example, you have some people will be like, hey, what should I eat? How much should I eat? They'll just ask me in the comments. I'm not going to give you a diet plan in the comments. You know what I mean? Like, if you want a diet plan, you got to at least sign up for a call or sign up for a diet plan, something. You got to put some skin in the game. I'm not going to give you a full-blown diet plan in the comments. Those people who are asking me, hey, how much should I eat? What should I eat? Can you tell me exactly what to eat and all this stuff? When they do that in the comments, these are people who are a nuisance to people in their personal lives. They're just coming to them with their hands out all the time. They just want something for nothing all the time. And that's disrespectful. That's disrespect. You just come to people, just hand out. You ain't even thinking about giving them anything in return. You're just trying to get stuff. It's disrespectful. That's why people don't like beggars. That's just why. That's why people, they feel comfortable being rude to like homeless people or whatever, right? Now, I don't disagree with this, but this is what it comes from. if you're a person out on the street, you're not groomed, whatever the case is, you're going out to somebody in public with your hands out, like, oh, can I get like some change or whatever? People are like, ugh, right? People act like that. I don't think that people should act like that. I'm saying that people do act like that. People tend to act like that naturally. Even if you don't outwardly go, ugh, get away from it. You may feel it, ugh, right? You may feel like, I don't know. Now, the reason why I say I know better than to act like that towards those people, and the reason why is because there's a whole bunch of other contexts that got them to where they are, and you don't know any of that. So you can't really adequately judge them because you don't know what happened to them beforehand. That person can be developmentally challenged, and they could have aged out of foster care and they just been on the street all the time, and you don't know, right? They could have just been born that way and they need a caretaker and they just ended up on the street. You don't know, right? But generally speaking, people don't like it when it's just that person. They always coming to you handout and just offering nothing in return. And the reason why we don't like that, it breaks universal law. We intuitively and intrinsically don't like that because that's not how the universe works. There is no something for nothing. It's not how it works. The earth won't even give you food if you offer nothing in return, right? In order for a tree to grow and bear fruit, it had to be given something. Imagine you have a farm, you're growing crops, but you don't give anything to the land to get crops in return. People are like, what the hell's wrong with you? You don't water it, you don't put down no fertilizer, you don't put no seeds in, you don't till the land. You're just gonna sit on it and think it's just gonna give you food? You crazy? You just want something for nothing? You're not gonna put nothing in? You gotta put something in. So for me, the terms and conditions is I don't ask for a whole lot. I really don't. I don't really ask anybody for anything. It's on you. You get to determine how much you give. It could be hitting the like button. It doesn't matter. But put something in. It doesn't matter how little it is. But however little it is, there has to be something that's put in. There is no something for nothing. It's a rule. If I give you something and you gave me nothing, you gave no value for it, you won't value it. No one values something for nothing. No one. Even like life is valued because of all the effort it took to produce it. Like to cultivate and create life requires a lot of effort. Like even for a human being to be brought into this world, you had to have two people come together and they have sex and they got to put the effort, however little or a lot of effort it is, into sex. Right? And then there had to be this sperm and they're flying, fighting for their life to get to the egg, and only one of them gets in and all the other ones die. Right? One. All millions, and only one makes it. All the other ones just screwed. It's wild. Imagine just millions of people, billions of people racing to the finish line, but only one person can cross the finish line. And then everybody else just gets canned. That's insane, right? So anyways, then the egg gets fertilized, and then it has to go through like this 9 months of development. And then 9 months of development, you, as a woman, you go through all these changes in your body. You have this thing growing in your body. It's expanding your freaking midsection like crazy. It's uncomfortable and all of this, right? There's all these risks and complications that you could potentially have in the pursuit of actually giving birth to a baby. And then you got to push a whole person out of your body. It's a lot. And we value that effort. Right? We don't just value the life, we value the effort behind it. As a matter of fact, if we just had brought a baby into the world, no effort, it'd be weird. Like imagine you just made a baby in in an incubator. You just made it out of whole cloth. You're like, I don't know, I don't feel comfortable with that. That's a little weird. I don't know. I don't think we should be doing that. It just feels wrong. People are like, I don't know. Look how people act about like lab-grown meat. Look how people act about lab-grown meat. Like you just getting meat just in a petri dish. I don't know. Growing meat in the lab. I don't know. We love technology and science, but for some reason, when it comes to that meat grown in a lab, people are like, I don't know. It's because of that lack of effort that's perceived behind it, right? You didn't kill anything for it. Nothing was grown, or nothing. It's just a free burger, just materialized. Some people act about it. We, to one degree or another, have this assumption about universal law. We're conscious of it to varying degrees, some people much less than others, but we kind of know it's there. We know when we're abiding by universal law to some degree, and we know when we're not. Right? Mamadou, thank you for the 4 roses. Appreciate you. You know what I haven't been doing this whole entire stream? I didn't say double tap the screen to like the stream. For those folks on TikTok, definitely double tap the screen to like the stream. And for those of you watching on YouTube, hit the like button. Like the stream if you like the stream. I had to plug that in real quick, right? So for me, I have a lot to give, so I'm more free about giving. The more I have to give, the more I give. Right? So like, for example, for me, one of my terms of service is the more resources I gain, the more I give. With that being understood, it is a direct benefit to you to make sure I get more because it benefits you. Right? So like somebody like me, if somebody like me was to become a billionaire, it would pull people out of poverty. If somebody like me was to be a trillionaire, it would pull even more people out of poverty. Right? Because I would leverage those resources in those people's favor. The problem is, somebody like me is much less likely to be a billionaire or a trillionaire because I refuse to engage in exploitative relationships with people. And don't do that. Right? So there are rules, and the rules are developed from things like self-esteem, because rules require standards, right? And as those standards increase, or as the self-worth or the self-esteem increases, the standard increases, and the standard is the substrate for developing rules. Yeah, this is a funny comment. I am not giving anyone anything I have. You know, the funny thing is you give whether you want to or not. That's the funny thing. You either give willingly or you lose it all unwillingly. That's a funny thing, right? It's because the law of energy. This is why constipation is a problem. This is the reason why we don't like greed. So like greed is a form of constipation. If you're taking and not giving, that's a pathological behavior. Right? If you're just accumulating resources and not giving in return, that's an imbalance in the environment. That's kind of like like the water keeps evaporating from the ground and going up into the sky, but it never rains. That's pathological. They'd be like, yo, there's all the goddamn water that we need for drinking water and cleaning and growing crops is in the damn clouds, and it's not raining. We're not getting any of it back. This is a problem. We're all gonna die down here. The clouds are so thick and saturated with water, it's blocking out the sun, it's killing everything down here. It's a pathological behavior. It's a universal law. You know, when it's your time to go and you die, you can't take it with you anyway. Whatever you give, you decide what you give. You have to give something. You decide what you give. You just have to be more discerning about what you give. But you give what you want to give. You give what you have to give. Right? But you have to give. Whether you like it or not, you have to. I ain't make the rules. That's just how it is. PT Coach Denise, what's going on? Always love the content. You're helping so many people with your knowledge, and it helps me stay on track so much. As a trainer, it's hard to get around the protein narrative, and your channel helps. Oh yeah, I appreciate that. The protein thing. I mean, people are obsessed with protein because I mean, it's a cultural thing. You know, uh, what's interesting is you got people talk about um you eat a bunch of fruit, it's all this sugar, it's gonna make you fat. So the fruit and the sugar, it'll grow cancer, it'll grow tumors, it'll grow body fat. It just won't grow muscle. So the fruit from the sugar that is a health food apparently is gonna grow all the harmful things, but none of the good things. It don't make sense. How does a health food grow the harmful things and not the beneficial things in your body? That don't make sense. Just rationally, it doesn't make sense, right? People put all of this emphasis on protein, and what's funny is that protein breaks down into amino acids, and most of the amino acids in existence do not build muscle. Most amino acids don't build muscle. The only amino acids that build muscle really are the branch chain amino acids. It's leucine, isoleucine, and valine. That's it. It's like 3 of them. Was it like 19, 21 amino acids? Depending on how you count them. You have more non-essential amino acids than essential amino acids, and only 3 of them really build muscle. So people put all of this effort, all of this value on protein consumption. And it's like mathematically, it doesn't really check out. We live in a population that eats tons of protein and getting weaker and weaker and weaker as time goes on. Men now have lower testosterone and less muscle mass than they did several decades ago. Right? Like the men are getting smaller, weaker, and more unhealthy as they consume more and more protein. And it's like, I thought more protein would build all of this muscle and all of that. The data's not showing that. So it's just funny. So people talk about you can't build muscle eating fruit, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, so how did I build mine? It's not rational. Like, oh, the fruit is too much sugar. It's going to make you fat. But it's also going to make you scrawny and weak. Is it do both? And then you look at all the frugivores on the entire planet. None of them are scrawny and fat. None of them. All the frugivores on the planet, none of them are fat and scrawny. None of them. But it's going to make human beings like that. That don't make sense. They don't make no sense. But like people just have these things floating around in their head and they don't really challenge the things that they stay in their head. Ray Armstead, thank you for the heart me. Appreciate you. So people ask me like, oh, can you build muscle on fruit? I wouldn't. First of all, if you couldn't, I wouldn't be telling you could. Because obviously people are going to do it and then not build any muscle and be like, I tried it and it doesn't work. My comments are going to be flooded with people who are like, I've been eating fruit and I ain't been gaining no muscle. I've been telling people to eat more fruit to drop body fat and gain mass and reverse their illnesses. I've been telling people this for years. I wouldn't say it for years. I wouldn't do it for years if it didn't work. I think I would just do something else. I've spent decades building the body that I currently have. I wouldn't insist on just eating a bunch of fruit and doing everything I'm doing now and sacrifice my muscle mass and whatnot to just eat fruit. I wouldn't make that exchange. I wouldn't burn my reputation like that. You know, if you're gonna scam people or lie to people like that, chances are you're gonna get exposed really early on. You can't really keep a grift going for that long unless you got a lot of corporate backing. And I don't have any sponsorships. I'm not hawking products on my site. There is no type in coupon code, this and that. I don't do any of that. You know, it ain't like, you know, banana companies are paying me money to tell people to eat bananas. But, you know, look, it is what it is. You know, the food that the earth gives you is good enough. I don't know what else to say about it. The food that the earth gives you was intended to grow your body. That was the point. All that fruit growing from the trees, it's to feed and sustain the lives of the mammals that live on its surface. That is the point. The earth isn't just gonna grow all of this food from trees just to feed you, but the food it's feeding you is not growing you. That doesn't make no sense. All life does is grow. As a matter of fact, anything that isn't growing is dying. A lack of growth is dying. That's what it means. Right? So, I mean, at the root of it, it's not really that complicated. If you don't eat enough, yeah, sure, it's not going to work. Well, I mean, you know, that's just how it is regardless. So I can't tone up eating raw plant-based. What do you mean you can't? Why wouldn't you be able to? I mean, you're definitely not going to get fat from eating a bunch of fruit. I was just on a call with a guy earlier. He was like, so what's this fruit thing? How you do all of that, Bill? What does that look like? And we went on Chronometer and I laid it out. Okay, so we do X amount of pounds of bananas, X amount of pounds of cantaloupe, X amount of pounds of grapes, and then we have a salad at the end of the day. And he was like, oh, wow, it gives you all of that? I didn't know that. Most people don't. It's not a cultural norm. People don't even realize how much protein is in fruit. Like, there is no such thing as a food without protein in it. There's no such thing. The food cannot maintain its molecular structure without protein. It's not possible. Right? All the minerals and vitamins and whatnot, they couldn't hold together without the protein in place. But anyways, I don't want to go on a wild tangent. Does anybody have any questions about all the self-esteem stuff I've been talking about tonight? I know I went on and on about it, but I got to talk about the mindset stuff more often. It's a very important topic. Because we gotta learn to like ourselves. We have to cultivate behaviors and goals in our lives that influence us to like ourselves more. We can like ourselves now, and then as we work on ourselves, we like ourselves more. And a big part of liking yourself is developing a relationship with yourself that is creating more and more value in your life. Do things that you can be proud of. Deploy your skills and your knowledge and your capabilities. Use them for good. Use them to improve the real world material conditions and well-being of yourself and everyone around you. The people you like, not really the people you don't like. The people you don't like, you don't gotta give them stuff and all of that. You don't gotta do that. Help the people you like. Help the people you like, and you like them because they give you a good enough reason to like them. Don't be liking people who haven't given you a reason to like them. Don't do that. The people who you don't like, they gave you a reason to not like them, and they're gonna have to do something to fix it. Unless you like them, unless you don't like them because of, like, you know, some type of jealousy, or you a hater or something like that, then you got to fix that. Right? So I figured put that caveat in there. But yeah, you know, live a full life doing something valuable and something you really enjoy doing. All right. That's right. The self-esteem information was helpful. Thank you. I appreciate you for tuning in. I appreciate all of y'all tuning in and coming to hang out with me tonight. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, giving their feedback, gifting on the live stream. We out here ticking and talking and YouTube streaming, chilling with the folks, chopping up some good game. Appreciate you all. Is white buckwheat good? White buckwheat. Have I eaten white buckwheat? I don't know. I don't know about white buckwheat. I mean, I would imagine buckwheat in and of itself, buckwheat is a good food. I don't think I've ever seen white buckwheat. I don't know the nutrient profile of it, so I'd have to look into that. So I assume white buckwheat is good. I assume that that's the case, but I don't have much experience with white buckwheat, so I couldn't say like definitively. The heart is an absolute force. True. True. You said avoid? Avoid what? Irrelevant, but what about oxalates in straight vegan diet? Let's say I need calcium-rich foods to what? Yeah, the whole oxalate thing. I mean, people speculate, oh, you know, plant-based foods are high in oxalates. I mean, sure, I guess, but if you're adequately hydrated, then oxalates won't really be a problem. Now, if you're getting a ton of oxalates in your diet and you're dehydrated all the time, well, that can be a problem. But that's a gap in your diet that's causing that, right? So, I mean, if you're eating like an abundance of fruits and things like that, then you don't really have to worry too much about the high levels of oxalates in your diet. You don't need more calcium. You just need to be adequately hydrated. GG, what's going on? GG, check in with me. Reach out to me on Discord. Get on the schedule. Let's catch up. All right, folks. So yeah, maybe I should do more video. I should do a video on the whole oxalate thing. Somebody asked me about the blood type diet and oxalate. So those are two things that are on the docket for me to talk about. Hey, haven't seen you here in a while. Not sure if it's my algorithm or if you haven't been on. Yeah, I mean, it's probably your algorithm, but I'm on like every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. That's what I'm doing now on TikTok, and then I'm doing 2 live streams a month on the YouTube channel. But these things are subject to change, right? So if I get called out, like, yo, you need to bring your ass back on here on the YouTube stream more frequently, yeah, we'll see. I'm working on some things, so I'm like, I gotta bounce my load out a little bit more. Shilajit, what about it? I don't know a whole lot about that, I'm gonna be honest. Is there any chance you look into a product called Shilajit? Oh, okay. I've been asked about it occasionally. I haven't gotten into looking at it yet. Is it like some type of like mushroom or something like that? Or it's like a mineral or something, whatever. I'm not really clear on even what it is, honestly. I'm pretty ignorant about it. Thoughts on organic tofu? You know what's interesting is tofu used to be a big part of my diet back in my early vegan days. I don't really eat much tofu anymore, to be honest. I don't really have much against. I don't really have anything against it necessarily. I just don't really eat it that much anymore. She legit is a must to research. Got you. I hope I'm saying that right, by the way. Can you share your playlist? This is actually music from Epidemic Sound. That's right. It's a whole vibe, y'all. It's a whole vibe. All right, I'm holding y'all on here. I've been on here for almost 2 hours now. So I'm going to sign off. I finished eating all of my bananas. And I'm still hungry, so I'm going to eat my grapes. And I will catch y'all on the next one. Take care, folks.